So you go to your therapist because you have this or that problem, an anxiety problem or a relationship problem or problems with anger or sadness or obsessive thinking, or perhaps because you're pulling your hair and you can't stop. And maybe you've been doing that for years. You know, pretty much regardless of the problem, a lot of people think the longer you've had your problem or the more intense it's been, the longer it has to take to really truly get fully handled. But is this really the case? If you struggled with trichotillomania for 20 years, does it have to take 20 years of therapy to finally overcome? The shocking truth is next. So how long does it take to make a change in what might have been even habitual thoughts, feelings, or behaviors? And not just a momentary change, but one that lasts. Lots of people think the longer you've had your problems, or the more intense it's been, or the more you've done to try to get help for it without success, that means the longer it has to take, for example, in therapy, to cure. But you know what's interesting? Nothing could be further from the truth, really. So this means even if you've been pulling your hair for 50 years, you could potentially totally get that cleared up in a moment if the right thing happens to change it at that moment. Now, if you're watching this and if you're one of our clients that you yourself stopped pulling easily just after your very first session with us, many of whom used to pull for years, Mary, you know who you are. Christopher, you know who you are. Julia, you know who you are. You know what I'm talking about. You know what the experience of breaking free from this junk quickly feels like. It can indeed and certainly does happen just this way under the right conditions. But how is such a thing possible? Doesn't this fly in the face of conventional wisdom? Well, I guess it does. But let's explain why this works. So consider this. You weren't born with your trichotillomania, were you? There was a time in your life, however long ago, where pulling your hair would never even have occurred to you, right? Stress or no stress, anxiety or no anxiety, boredom or no boredom, pulling your hair would have never even occurred to you. But then one day, you pulled your first hair, and it wasn't the last. In fact, for many of our clients, they pulled out a bunch of hair during their very first experience with it. Maybe for no better reason than there they were sitting in the back of the car, maybe as a kid, and you tugged on one eyelash and thought, well, that feels kind of interesting. So you did it again, and again, and again, without really thinking about what you were doing, and before you knew it, you're home and you pulled out every one of your eyelashes. And that was it. You were hooked. And maybe it stayed that way for you over all these long years since. But think about it for a second. You learned to have this problem quickly, didn't you? Before you left, you never even heard of trichotillomania, right? And now all of a sudden, by the time you get home, now you have trichotillomania? Well, if you can learn to have it that quickly, why shouldn't it be possible to unlearn it just as quickly? Because that's just the process of learning something else that takes its place. You know what's interesting? Human beings learn quickly. In fact, you can't learn slowly even if you tried. Want proof? Let's take an example. You know how movies are made, right? Usually movies are shot at the rate of 24 frames a second, each frame separated by a black frame in between. Then things got faster and they started shooting at 30 frames a second, and some blockbusters these days are shot at 60 frames a second. You can even buy home camcorders, like the one this video is being shot on right now, that shoots at 60 frames a second. And of course, movies are played back in real time, that is at least 24 frames a second, and because our perceptual apparatus isn't sophisticated enough to notice the individual frames, it looks like it's all one smooth contiguous motion, but of course it's not, is it? It's a perceptual illusion called persistence of vision. But here's my point. What if you slowed down that movie? What if you tried to watch that movie at the rate of, say, 1 frame an hour? Would you know what that movie was about by the time you were done with it? Of course not. What if you tried to read a book at the rate of 1 word an hour? Would you know what that book was about by the time you were finished with it? Of course not. My point is, you can't learn slowly. Even if you tried, you can only learn quickly. So why try to help a client change any other way? If you're a therapist, if the best you think your client can do is change slowly over time, no wonder it's not working very well. The moral of the story? Never mind all the myths that say therapy has to be a long, drawn-out process, or that you need to go back and take a bunch of time to clean up all the junk from your deep, dark past before you can finally experience healing here in the present. None of that stuff is true. Of course, just to be clear, I'm not saying that it's never worthwhile to go back and spend some time working on healing some of your past, especially the more painful stuff that you know continues to haunt you here in the present. I'm just saying that it's not necessary to take an inordinate amount of time psychoanalyzing the deeper origins of your problem in order to change however you're feeling or behaving, that presumably you don't like, right here, right now, and for it to stay changed. Your problem, presumably trichotillomania, whenever you're having it, is a present moment problem. It's something that when you do it, you're doing it in the here and now. And chances are when you're doing it, you're not thinking about all the stuff that went wrong 20 years ago. So how long does it take to cure trichotillomania? Just ask our recent clients, Mary, or Christopher, or Julia. They'll tell you how quickly it's absolutely 1,000% possible to make this change. So I hope you found this video helpful. Go ahead and hit the reply button below and let us know what you think, okay? What's your reaction to what you learned here? Has it perhaps changed your mind a bit with regard to what might be possible for you too? Meantime, feel free to leave your comments, questions, or suggestions wherever you may be watching this video. If you're watching at our Facebook community page, that's really probably the best place for you to leave a comment because I think that's where there's the greatest potential for engagement with others. And we like that. We want to encourage engagement and conversation whenever possible. If you're watching this video at our blog site, feel free to leave your comments and questions there as well. And you can do the same thing at our YouTube channel. And by the way, we'd love it if you'd be good enough to like and share our videos with others. And then you can always visit us at our website at www.trick-free.com. There's lots of good information there, lots more about what we do and how we do it, and lots of ways to contact us at our website. If you're interested, there's a bunch of success stories over there from clients who've already experienced the kind of life-changing breakthroughs we keep talking about, including the 3 clients we just mentioned here. So feel free to head on over there and check those out. Again, I'm Robert Mantell with the Trichotillomania Relief Specialists. Thanks again for watching. Glay and I hope you have an amazing trick-free week.